She twirled the stem of her wine glass like she was stirring a cauldron. "Maybe I should just leave for a week," she said, loud enough to cut through the music playing from her phone. "Let you feel what it's like without me around cleaning up your messes." Her friends laughed. Real, guttural laughs that came too quick to be genuine. I stood across the kitchen island, holding a dish towel, staring at the remnants of a dinner I'd made for all of them. Roast chicken, rosemary potatoes, a bottle of the good wine. You'd think I had slapped them all across the face with it. She met my eyes, daring me to protest. I didn't. "If that's what you need," I said, folding the towel neatly on the counter. That's all I gave her. Not a raised voice, not a plea, just a flat, even tone like I was approving a work order. I saw the flicker barely, but it was there. That pause where she expected something else. That power vacuum when someone realizes their bait didn't land. She downed the rest of the wine and said, "Good. Then I'm gone tomorrow." One of her friends clapped. Literally clapped. And squealed, "Yes, girl. Teach him." Another leaned over to whisper something, eyes flicking toward me like I was the janitor they were gossiping about. None of them noticed my expression didn't change. That was the moment I knew exactly how this would play out. Not the drama. Not the tears. Not the fights. The quiet. Because when someone thinks they've cornered you with a performance, and you don't play your part, that's when the whole theater collapses. That night she packed. Loudly. Performatively. Tossed clothes into her overnight bag with the same energy she used to criticize my driving. She left the door open, as if I might wander in and beg her not to go. I was in the garage, oiling the hinges on the tool cabinet she said I never used. By morning, she was gone. Her perfume lingered like arrogance in the hallway. A half-drunk espresso on the counter. A toothbrush still in the holder. Like she wanted to keep one toe in the house. The audacity was almost artistic. Her name was still on everything: house, accounts, business license, yet she walked out like it was some cute power move. A 7-day punishment. What she didn't know is that for the last 11 months, I had been working late not just at the office but with someone else. A friend of mine, older, semi-retired, used to work estate law. He owed me a favor. I wasn't planning to use it until last night. And since you're already here and clearly enjoying this story, do us both a favor, hit that subscribe button. Over 97% of folks who listen to these never subscribe, and honestly, it helps the team bring you even better content. So go on, it only takes a second. Alright, back to the story. Her car pinged just before noon. A location update. She forgot I had access. A spa resort in another state, of course. Reflection week, her friend posted. No boys allowed clinking glasses. I chuckled and opened my desk drawer. A manila folder waited inside, labeled in neat handwriting. Trigger documents. She'd seen it before. Years ago. Signed a few things with a bored yawn. One clause stood out now in blue highlighter. If either party vacates the primary residence without notice for more than 48 hours for non-business or medical reasons, sole authority may transfer to the remaining party via notarized declaration. She thought I'd just roll over and beg. Instead, I walked into my office, locked the door, and picked up the phone. "It's time," I said. No yelling, no threats, just chess. Because the thing about lessons is this. Sometimes the student thinks they're the teacher. But I had just opened the textbook. And page 1 was hers. Her departure wasn't loud, it was calculatedly loud. Like a child slamming the door just to see if someone runs after them. She even left a note beside the fruit bowl that said, "Maybe this time apart will help you grow up." Not signed. Not folded. Just sitting there like it was supposed to sting. I stared at it for a few seconds before using it to clean a coffee ring off the granite. Her flight info pinged at 11:12 a.m. from Charlotte. Private story on Instagram. A mimosa glass, legs in a bathrobe, and the caption, "Detox begins." The background music? Beyoncé's Sorry. Predictable. I closed the app, locked my phone, and opened the bottom drawer of the cabinet. Inside was an old flip phone. Unregistered. No cloud. One number saved. Clark. I dialed. "Yeah. It's time," I said. My voice felt foreign in my mouth. Flat like a legal stamp. Clark didn't miss a beat. "You're sure?" She left. Unannounced. Out of state. It's documented. There was a pause and then the clack of a mechanical keyboard. He still typed like he was in court. 2 fingers aggressively. "Good. Then yes. The documents are ready." The air in my home felt different. Lighter. No background judgment. No passive sighs from the next room. No wine glasses clinking from late-night girl talks about how real men don't track mileage on grocery bills. Just silence. My kind of silence. I walked into the den, opened the laptop I kept separate from our shared devices, and pulled up a secure folder. Inside, PDFs dated 6 months back. Trust restructuring paperwork. Home title contingencies. Letters of revocation. Backup lease modifications. Each labeled with a dry efficiency she would have mocked until now. Most husbands in situations like mine beg, plead, panic. But I'd spent years watching the erosion one sarcastic jab at a time, one wine night therapy buzzword at a time. What she called boundaries, I called red flags with neon lighting. So I prepared. Not out of malice. Just prudence. Clark emailed me 2 documents by noon. One for immediate notarization. Transfer of primary financial agent via Clause 3.4b. The other, a single-page revocation letter for joint control of our family trust, based entirely on absence trigger logic. She'd signed that one while watching reality TV, asking me if she really needed to read all this boring crap. No, honey, you didn't. By 2:30 p.m., I was sitting in the notary's office. Small place, no windows, smelled like ink and dust. The guy barely looked up, stamped both pages with a mechanical click, handed me a copy, and said, "That's it. You're now the sole financial controller. Anything else?" "Yes," I said. "Fax this to the county registrar and send a certified copy to the management company. Use the address I gave you, not the shared one." He didn't even blink. Guess I'm not the first guy to go ghost mode after a detox getaway. As I drove home, I thought about the way her friends always said, "You're lucky she chooses you," like I was some lottery winner in a game I didn't enter. But luck has nothing to do with leverage. And leverage doesn't ask permission. I pulled into the driveway and stared at our house. Correction, my house. Everything looked the same, but something fundamental had shifted. That night, I opened a bottle of bourbon she always said was too harsh for guests, poured 2 fingers, sat in her favorite chair, and deleted her access to our joint cloud drive. Let her detox. I was already disinfecting. The first time I showed her the trust agreement, she was halfway through a pedicure in our living room, glass of Prosecco in one hand, phone in the other, scrolling through vacation rentals, just for fun. I had printed everything, color-coded, tabbed, even highlighted the parts one thought might raise questions. Clause 5.3, Clause 9a, and most importantly, Clause 12. See unilateral control in event of unnotified absence from primary residence exceeding 48 hours. She didn't even look up. Do I need to read all this? Can't you just tell me the important parts? I did. Slowly. I explained how the trust protected both of us. How it gave either party temporary authority over assets if the other left without explanation. It's just a safeguard, I had said. Only kicks in if things go sideways. She yawned, signed with a glitter gel pen, then asked if we could order Thai for dinner. I scanned that file into a locked folder the same night. Not because I thought I'd need it, but because something about the way she skimmed everything, contracts, boundaries, even my emotions, told me she'd one day trip over her own shortcuts. That day had come. I pulled the file back up, digitally first, then the hard copy from my safe. It was thick, detailed, precise, crafted with every bit of legal paranoia Clark and I could muster. She had insisted years ago on keeping her boutique store's registration under the trust umbrella to save on taxes. That decision alone gave me broad legal range over the business as well, because I was the initiating grantor. She thought the paperwork was boring, dry, bureaucratic noise. She didn't see what it really was. An exit plan dressed like joint responsibility. It took me 20 minutes to trigger the clause. One signed declaration, notarized and timestamped, and the shift began. Control of the trust, mine. Asset protection clauses, frozen. Spousal privileges, suspended, pending a joint reinstatement hearing, which, conveniently, could only be requested after 30 consecutive days of co-residency. And she had just left for a week. I smiled, the kind of slow, quiet smile that only happens when you realize someone handed you the knife they're about to trip on. Even better, she'd been using the trust's shared credit card to book spa treatments, private yoga instructors, and business dinners for her store's social media interns, because it was all technically reimbursable until now. Now it was all personal misuse of fiduciary funds. Let her explain that to a tax advisor. I filed the amendment packet with Clark's courier by 6 p.m. sealed, time-stamped, and logged. 2 copies went to the trust's custodian in Delaware, 1 to our family accountant, and 1 to the boutique's silent partner, my cousin Mike, who never liked her and had been waiting for an excuse to call his investment in. The chessboard was set. She had played checkers for years, jumping emotions, skipping consequences, landing hard on smug declarations like, "You'd be lost without me." But this wasn't emotion. It was documentation, and she'd never bothered to read it. Funny, really. She always prided herself on being the organized one. She had color-coded bins in the garage, arranged our spice rack alphabetically, and created entire Pinterest boards on how to declutter your soul. Yet somehow, she'd never once opened the folder labeled Mutual Financial Trust, Emergency Protocols. She'd seen it, rolled her eyes at it, and signed her name at the bottom. Now that signature was a weapon. Not forged, not manipulated, just activated. While she was sipping cucumber water and tagging her friends in posts about spiritual resets, I was rewriting the architecture of our lives. She thought she was pausing the game. She didn't realize it was already over. The first move was so quiet even the bank didn't flinch. A signature here, a verification code there. The clerk at the branch recognized me from years of Friday deposits. Still called me, sir. Like I was someone's uncle they didn't want to disappoint. Just updating some internal controls, I said, smiled. He nodded, tapped his keyboard like it was a piano, and handed me a folder labeled Reassignment of Mortgage Authorization. No protest, no delay. She wasn't there to contest it, and she couldn't, not after voluntarily vacating the residence without notice. Clause 12C, again. The backbone of everything I was now doing. Utilities came next. Power, gas, water, even the Wi-Fi plan she'd insisted on upgrading for better streaming. All switched to individual accounts under my name. Not canceled, just converted. The lady at the electric company asked if I wanted to retain spousal billing privileges. I said no, with a tone like I was choosing a different salad dressing. The car was trickier, only because it was technically in her name, but registered at our shared address and financed with my credit. Clark had prepared for that too. A title reassignment form tied to our shared asset management contract. A contract she signed when we refinanced 3 years ago. I dropped it off at the DMV on a Tuesday morning and had the new title printed by lunch. She still had the car. She just didn't own it anymore. It was astonishing how much you could rearrange in a week if you knew the system and didn't blink. Even the boutique, her pride and joy, wasn't safe. On paper, it was her business. In reality, I'd been the seed investor, the grantor of the initial line of credit, and the co-signer on the commercial lease. Which meant that buried in the operating agreement, again, filed and forgotten, was a clause allowing the majority stakeholder to revoke joint tax advantages if misuse or misrepresentation was suspected. Her Instagram posts from the spa didn't help her case. Neither did the write-offs from last month's business retreat that included hotel room service, massage add-ons, and a bottle of Veuve that was somehow charged as client entertainment. I triggered the clause quietly, filed it through our tax advisor with a revised Form 1065, revoking the shared shelter status and flagging a pending audit. No one called, no one emailed, just a green accepted checkmark from the IRS portal. What once looked like a marriage with entangled finances now looked like 2 strangers with separate orbits. By Thursday, I had even changed the codes to the garage keypad. Not locked her out, just removed the auto-open from her app. A symbolic touch. If she wanted in, she could ring the bell like a guest. There was a strange calm in all of it. No yelling, no vindictive rage, just paper, signatures, and timestamps. I wore jeans and a flannel shirt through most of it, sipping coffee from the mug she once gave me that said, "I'm not arguing, I'm just explaining why I'm right." Ironic, that mug held more truth now than ever. I didn't tell anyone, not my sister, not the guys at work. This wasn't a performance. There were no social media declarations, no cryptic quotes about healing or knowing your worth. Just quiet action, like replacing a cracked beam in a foundation while the house still looks fine from the street. And the best part? Every move I made was legal, reversible only by mutual agreement. And she'd burned that bridge the moment she packed her Louis Vuitton bag and declared, "Maybe I should leave so you appreciate me more." Oh, I appreciated something all right. I appreciated the stillness, the clarity, the way the house sounded without her chaotic energy rattling the walls. I even found myself sleeping better, deeper. No cold shoulder facing away from me in bed. No sighs when I walked into a room. By the end of the week, I had one final task left. Changing the emergency contact forms on our insurance, our will executor, and our medical directives. For the first time in 14 years, her name wasn't next to mine. She thought this was a timeout. She didn't realize it was a transition. Surgical, permanent, and by the book. It happened on the third day of her empowerment getaway. Mid-afternoon, somewhere between her overpriced sound bath and a Reiki session with a woman named Sapphire who wore crystals as earrings. She was lounging poolside with her friends, phone in one hand, cucumber water in the other, when it rang. It was Lara, the responsible one in the group which wasn't saying much. Lara worked part-time as a real estate assistant and had once bragged about helping draft a lease agreement for a vape shop. But today her voice was different, tight, breathless. Hey, did you take your name off the backup lease on the house? My wife blinked behind oversized sunglasses. What? No. Why? Lara's voice dropped to a whisper. Because I just checked. You're not on it anymore. There was a pause. My wife sat up. What are you talking about? That lease is automatic. He'd have to file a form with the property manager. And he wouldn't even know how to do that. Another voice came through the speaker, Courtney, the one who always had a new man and a new lawsuit. Didn't you say he didn't even read the trust paperwork when you guys signed it? You literally said, he's clueless with that stuff. More laughter in the background. But this time, it sounded like nervous laughter. Like someone had misjudged the depth of the pool they were diving into. My wife waved them off at first. Please. He probably hired someone to fetch his dry cleaning and sent the wrong form. He doesn't even know where the fuse box is. But the doubt had already burrowed under her skin. She opened the property manager's portal, tapped around with the casual confidence of someone who always assumed she'd be in control. The status page loaded. Leaseholder, David Ralston. Backup, not applicable. She stared at it, then refreshed it. Same result. The water in her spa glass suddenly felt a little warm. The friends leaned in, eyes darting between each other. The laughter was gone. Babe, call him, Lara said, nudging her. Just clear it up, she called. It rang. Once, twice, straight to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. She opened their shared calendar. It was blank. Completely blank. No reminders. No bill due dates. No color-coded notes about her boutique's relaunch party. It looked like a digital graveyard. The third call also went unanswered. Then she tried his email. The one they used for shared bills. Blocked. She frowned. No way, she muttered, trying his personal one. It bounced back instantly. She laughed. Forced and sharp. Okay, well, he's clearly being petty. This is classic wounded man behavior. You let them feel a little pressure and they go silent. He's trying to get under my skin. But Lara was still staring at her phone. Wait, I just pulled the trust file from when you two signed at that notary office. Remember? The boring afternoon with the tuna sandwiches. My wife was now visibly tense. Yeah? What about it? It says here, Clause 12, c. Unilateral fiduciary control may be assumed in the event of voluntary absence exceeding 48 hours without co-party notification. She blinked. What? Courtney leaned over. So wait, you left. You didn't tell him anything. And it's been 3 days. They all stared at her. Her mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. Courtney's tone shifted. You're not playing him. He's playing you. No, she said, standing. No, he wouldn't do that. He's not wired that way. This isn't him. But her voice didn't sound convinced. Not even to herself. Because for the first time it occurred to her, what if the man she thought would always be 3 steps behind had simply stopped running the race and started laying traps instead? She tried calling him again. Voicemail. No ring this time. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels surgical, calculated. The others were now pretending to scroll their phones, not making eye contact. It took 3 hours for the panic to fully set in. She excused herself from dinner early, blamed a migraine, but spent the evening frantically texting old contacts. Lawyers, mutual friends, even Clark, not knowing he'd long since chosen his side. She thought this trip was a lesson, a break to reclaim her space. But the only space she had now was the growing void between who she thought she married and the man quietly dismantling her kingdom, one signature at a time. She came back 2 days early, which in her mind probably felt like a grand act of mercy, like Cleopatra descending the throne to offer grace. The wheels of her suitcase clicked over the hardwood with that entitled rhythm only someone truly unaware can muster. She even had a half-smirk on her face as she walked through the front door, expecting, what? Me sitting at the kitchen table, eyes puffy, ready with some half-mumbled apology about how much I missed her. The keys still worked. I left them that way on purpose. Predictability has power, especially when it leads your opponent to the wrong conclusion. She pushed open the door with a little extra flair, maybe for an imaginary audience, and paused in the entryway like she was waiting for something. Noise, movement, a greeting. Anything. Nothing. She called out once. David. Silence. The house wasn't cold. It wasn't warm. It was balanced, neutral. A place with no mood left for her to bend. Her heels clicked toward the bedroom. The first real crack in her face came when she turned the doorknob and saw the bed. Made perfectly, like a hotel. Crisp sheets, decorative pillows, and completely empty of her belongings. No robe on the hook. No hair products on the dresser. No half-unpacked tote bag spilling receipts and hand cream. Just space. She stood there for a few seconds, confused, before spotting the folded note on the kitchen counter. Guest room is made up. Let me know when you'd like to discuss next steps. No signature. No flourish. Just plain black ink on plain white paper. She snorted. A bitter, disbelieving sound. Wow, he's really doing a bit. Okay. She shook her head like she was the sane one in a room of lunatics. As if I had just thrown a tantrum in her absence and moved her stuff to make a statement. But she hadn't even started reading yet. It wasn't until she opened her laptop and pulled up her email that her laugh died in her throat. The first one hit like a mild slap. Account access modification notice. Property tax authority reassigned. Then another. Notification of control transfer. Ralston Family Trust. Primary signatory updated. Her inbox had 13 unread messages. By the fifth one, her jaw had tightened. By the eighth, her fingers were frozen over the trackpad. And then the boutique email. Subject. Partnership designation change. Filing acknowledged. The boutique. Her baby. The one she built from Pinterest boards and overpriced logo designers. She clicked it open, hoping it was some system glitch, some cruel prank. Instead, it was a confirmation from the state registrar. The primary financial controller had been redesignated. As per filed clause 6b, the trust's voting member had reassigned business privileges, pending audit. Her boutique no longer lived under the shared tax shelter. It now lived under my umbrella. Alone. She jumped to the portal dashboard. Half the settings were grayed out. Her admin role was still there, but stripped of authority. She tried to reset her permissions and got an error message. She called the silent partner. Hey, it's me. I need to fix something with the... He cut her off. You'll have to take that up with David. She blinked. What? No, I'm the one who... He interrupted again. Not anymore. The trust controls changed. He owns majority leverage now. You walked out, remember? She barely managed to say goodbye before the line went dead. She threw her phone on the counter and started pacing, talking to no one. This is illegal. This is manipulation. I was gone for 5 days. This isn't how anything works. Except, it was, because she had signed it, because I had read every clause, because she had laughed through them, too busy texting her friends about whether to get curtain bangs again. She spent the next hour digging through drawers, checking the home safe, pulling open files like she could find some hidden lever to pull. But all she found was silence, order, an environment now immune to her chaos. And then she made the mistake of opening the shared drive. Except it wasn't shared anymore. Access revoked. All of it. She slammed the laptop shut, stood in the middle of the kitchen, and shouted, David! No answer. I was home, of course. I just didn't feel like playing anymore. She hadn't come home to a man groveling for her affection. She had walked back into a fortress. And she didn't even know where the front door was anymore. She walked into the bank like she owned it. Like her heels had the authority to clear a path. The glass doors swung wide as if the world owed her compliance. Hair perfect, sunglasses pushed up onto her head like a crown, lips tight with resolve. She looked like someone about to file a complaint, not lose a kingdom. The tellers gave her the usual polite nods, the ones you give someone who used to be important. She didn't notice the shift in tone, how they avoided eye contact after the first glance. She strutted right up to the reception desk and said, Hi, I need to speak to your branch manager. Now. Is this regarding an account? The young receptionist asked, overly calm. Yes, our accounts. Joint checking, savings, business float line. The name's Ralston. The receptionist typed with fake urgency, then said, "1 moment, ma'am," and disappeared into the back. She glanced at her phone. No messages. No missed calls. Just a week-old text from Lara that read, "He's too quiet. Be careful." She hadn't responded to that one. The branch manager came out a few minutes later. A man named Kent who'd met us once before at a quarterly review. Nice guy. Wore a tie even when no one else did. Today, his face looked like he'd drawn the short straw. "Mrs. Ralston," he greeted, extending a hand that she didn't take. "Let's talk in my office." She followed him in with that tight smile women wear when they think they're about to shame someone into submission. Once the door closed, she dropped the performance. "What the hell is going on with our accounts?" He motioned for her to sit. She didn't. "Mrs. Ralston," he began carefully, like a man disarming a bomb. "We received a reclassification request last week. Ownership and control were reassigned based on trust activation and documented notice." She blinked. "Reclassification? What does that even mean?" "The joint designation has been frozen," he said. "Pending arbitration. Mr. Ralston filed notice under Clause 12C of your shared trust. It grants unilateral control if one party voluntarily vacates the shared residence for more than 48 hours without documentation or medical necessity." Her mouth opened, closed. "That clause doesn't mean this. He can't just lock me out of our own money." "I'm not a lawyer," Kent said calmly, folding his hands. "But the trust document is legally binding and has been recognized as valid by our compliance team." She looked around the office like someone checking for cameras. Like this was some elaborate prank. "I need access to my boutique's line of credit. Right now." "I'm sorry," he said. "That line was reassigned to the primary grantor. It's under review pending ownership audit. You're welcome to submit a dispute packet." Her voice rose. "A dispute packet? Are you serious? You know me, Kent. You've seen my name on every damn check for the last 3 years. I also saw your name disappear from the tax shelter designation," he said, still professional. 4 days ago. She sat down hard in the chair she'd refused earlier. The impact echoed in the room. "I was gone for 5 days. He didn't respond. Just gave her the look professionals reserve for people who never thought consequences would arrive. And you just let him do all this? Without calling me?" "He didn't remove you from the trust, Mrs. Ralston," Kent said gently. "He just activated a clause. A clause you signed." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "He set me up." "I can't speak to his intent," Kent replied. "But everything he did is documented and currently in compliance." She sat there, stunned, while her phone buzzed again. A new email. This one from the boutique's payment processor. "Notice? Payout method updated by authorized controller." She didn't even open it. She looked up at Kent, and her voice cracked, just slightly. "You don't understand. This was supposed to be my move. Just a reset. Not this." Kent gave a polite, bureaucratic smile. "Then perhaps this isn't about money. Perhaps it's about control." She stood abruptly, knocking her bag into the chair. Her exit was quieter than her entrance. No eye contact on the way out. No nods from the tellers. Only the soft ding of the glass doors as they closed behind her. She had expected him to be wounded, maybe sulking. But instead, she found a man who had simply moved faster and made sure everything had a receipt. She sat at the kitchen counter, shoulders hunched, staring at the bottle of wine she used to mock him for drinking. "Too dry," she used to say. "Makes you smell like a retired priest." Now she poured herself a glass without hesitation. The only thing familiar in a house that suddenly felt like it belonged to a stranger. She'd spent the entire day calling, pleading, circling, grasping at bureaucratic air. Every door she opened slammed itself shut. The accounts, frozen. The trust, activated. The boutique, controlled. The lease, modified. The car, re-registered. She still hadn't seen him, still hadn't heard his voice. Not even a welcome home. He'd gone full ghost, except ghosts don't rewire your life with notarized precision. Around 9:42 p.m., the inbox pinged. One new email. From David Ralston Legal Representation. Subject, Separation of Interests, Voluntary Trigger Clause Executed. Attachment, Separation_Clause 12C_executed.pdf. Her hand hovered over the trackpad for a full 5 seconds before she clicked. The document opened in a sterile gray window. No commentary, no gloating, just facts. Crisp, boring, devastating facts. In accordance with Section 12C of the Ralston Mutual Trust, and following a documented unnotified absence by the co-signee exceeding 48 hours, the remaining party has executed a unilateral separation of interests. Assets, responsibilities, and authorities have been reallocated as outlined below. There were bullet points, charts, signatures, timestamps, all legitimate. The kicker was buried near the bottom. This action is non-reversible without co-signatory agreement and 90-day cohabitation minimum under Clause 14A. She reread that line twice, 3 times. 90 days. She'd have to live with him under his roof by his rules for 90 days just to earn the privilege of undoing it. The same man she used to correct in public. The man whose shirts she'd tossed out without asking. The man she trained, as she used to joke to her friends, like a rescue dog that barked too much. Now that dog held the deed, the accounts, and the key to the cage she never saw closing. She called her lawyer Mark, some old college friend of Lara's with perfect teeth and a bad memory for deadlines. He picked up on the third ring. Rachel, I just got a document from his counsel. He activated the trigger clause. Took everything. Says I initiated it. Can he do that? There was a long pause. A very long pause. Then a sigh. Technically, yes. What do you mean technically? I mean you vacated the primary residence without prior written notice, for a duration exceeding the threshold outlined in the trust. You were gone for over 48 hours. That's the condition. You triggered it. She swallowed hard. But that's not what I meant when I left. I understand. But it doesn't matter what you meant. It matters what you signed. Her eyes burned. So I'm just what? Screwed. Another pause. If he doesn't want to reverse it, yes. She hung up without saying goodbye. The wine suddenly tasted like acid. She slammed the glass down and paced the kitchen. Barefoot now, the floor colder than she remembered. Her phone buzzed again. Another email. This one from the trust's digital dashboard. Co-controller access revoked. Current authority, David Ralston. If you believe this is an error, please contact your legal representative. She stared at the screen until it dimmed. This was supposed to be a flex, a reset, something to teach him a little humility. Instead, she'd stepped off a ledge she didn't know was there, and he hadn't caught her. He'd drawn the line with ink and statutes, not anger. She kept expecting to hear his voice, to see him furious, crying, something, but there was no sound, no fight, just the cold indifference of a man who had already decided. She'd already left. He was just making it official. She picked the restaurant herself. Somewhere neutral, upscale enough to preserve dignity, but casual enough that she could pretend this wasn't an apology tour. Linen napkins. No candles. Corner booth. She wore navy blue, which was rare for her. She once said it washed her out, made her look tired. But tonight, it softened her in ways she couldn't fake anymore. I arrived right on time. Not early. Not late. No flowers. No handshake. Just a polite nod as I sat across from her. She opened with small talk. Weather. Traffic. A ridiculous comment about how the Brussels sprouts on the menu used to be our favorite. I didn't correct her. The silence stretched. Finally, she leaned forward. Palms flat on the table like she was anchoring herself. David, we don't have to do this. I know things got twisted, but we can come back from it. You're still you, I'm still me. It's not broken. We just lost track of each other. She smiled small, careful. Practiced. I let her speak. She said words like reset and rebuild and foundation, as if we were drafting blueprints instead of sitting in the ruins. She mentioned communication for times, healing twice, and dropped the boutique in once like it was an afterthought, not a core artery in the dissection. When she finished, she folded her hands neatly and waited. like I was a judge about to deliver sentencing. But there was no sentencing. Just facts. I sipped my water, set the glass down gently. You told me to learn a lesson, I said, quiet but clear. She blinked. What? I gave her a soft smile, the kind people give at funerals. That night in the kitchen, remember? You said maybe I should be alone for a while. See how it feels. She looked down. I continued. I did. I learned what peace sounds like. I learned that absence doesn't hurt when the presence was already hollow. I learned that loving someone who keeps you in emotional debt isn't love. It's survival. Her voice was barely a whisper. That's not what I meant. But it's what you taught. The waiter came with the check, setting it delicately between us like a bomb. She reflexively reached for it, trying to summon some gesture of goodwill. I raised a hand. It's already paid. She froze. I stood slowly, adjusting my jacket. I appreciate the dinner, I said. And the performance. She looked up, eyes searching my face for softness, for anything left to negotiate with. There was nothing. I don't hate you, I added. But I also don't owe you anything anymore. I turned to leave, then paused at the edge of the table. You said space would help us grow. You were right. She tried to speak, but I was already walking. She stayed behind, sitting alone at a table set for two, with an empty seat across from her and a waiter patiently waiting to clear the plates. And for the first time, she realized something horrifying. I hadn't come to argue. I came to end the conversation, and I didn't even need her to agree. The envelope arrived in a plain white sleeve. No fanfare, no return address she'd recognize. Just a signature-required slip from the courier and a thin slice of dread as she turned it over in her hands. Her nails, freshly done for no one in particular, dug slightly into the corner as she opened it. She already knew what it was, even before the flap gave way. Inside, 3 documents, neatly stapled, crisp, no folds. The first was formal, transfer of ownership notification. Ralston primary residence. Effective immediately. Full rights, title, and deed reassigned to David Ralston. The second, mutual spousal agreement dissolution acknowledgement. Pre-signed by both parties. Her signature, scanned from a previous document, where she'd once approved a renewal clause without reading the fine print, had triggered a secondary clause, allowing mutual withdrawal without a physical meeting. The irony of her own laziness dissolving her marriage on her behalf wasn't lost on her. The third page wasn't legal. It wasn't notarized. It wasn't necessary. It was personal. Handwritten, black ink on white paper. Your friends were right. You did teach me a lesson. Just not the one you intended. No name. No goodbye. She read it once. Twice. Then again. The room suddenly felt too quiet. The hum of the refrigerator became a scream. The air felt heavier around her neck. She moved to the couch. Slowly, like each step was a negotiation, and sat down with the documents splayed across her lap. She called no one. There was no performance to rally for. No backup choir of friends to chant about self-worth and reclaiming your power. Even they had gone quiet. Even Courtney, who once said, "He's harmless. You could walk all over that man in heels." No one was answering now. The spa group chat had dried up. The social posts from that week, mimosas, beaches, barefoot empowerment, were still there, but now they looked like crime scene photos. She tried texting him one more time the day after their dinner. "Can we talk again?" The message never delivered. She held the note in her hand, staring at it like it would change under pressure. But it didn't. It just sat there. Final. Cold. Precise. She left for a week. That was all it took. A single week for him to turn years of quiet tolerance into a strategy. She thought she was pressing pause. He was writing the ending. It was strange how ordinary the house looked. The throw pillows still fluffed. The framed photo from Santa Barbara still hanging above the console table, though now it felt like a lie she hadn't yet taken down. She looked at her reflection in the black screen of the TV. Her face hadn't changed, but everything else had. And the worst part, the part that would crawl behind her ribs and live there long after the paperwork was boxed away, was that he never once screamed, never threatened, never begged. He just left. Not physically, not dramatically, but entirely, emotionally, legally, spiritually. She didn't know the exact moment she lost him. It wasn't when she packed her bags. It wasn't when her friends giggled over cocktails and called it a reset. It was somewhere in all the eye rolls, the condescension, The 100 tiny ways she chipped away at someone who was too decent to fight back out loud. Until he wasn't. Until he didn't need to. Now, there were no lessons left to teach. Just consequences left to live in. He was gone. And she was still here. Sitting in the middle of a house she no longer owned. Holding a letter she couldn't argue with. From a man she no longer recognized. She left for a week. He left forever.